Welcome to Driving the Line, the pursuit of safety, where we talk about the real issues out on the road, focus on safe driving, and learn industry best practices from your hosts Kenny Ray, Mike Bohan, and Jim Seibert, in the hopes that by driving the line, we get more drivers home safe and sound. This podcast was made possible by Marsh McLennan Agency.
Hey, folks, and welcome back to Driving the Line, the podcast that is always in the pursuit of safety. This is Kenny Ray, along with Mike and Jim, the regular host on the podcast, and we're going to do something a little different today. If you listen to the last episode, we focused on road check, but Mike had both an introduction and a closing that referenced transitions in life and how people coming out of high school or thinking about college, the military, or career, and people coming out of college are thinking about their career. And the three of us, because we are all in the safety business, we're full-time in it. We've been in it for years. We have tons and tons of contacts. We network at the state, local, and national level in various trade organizations and trucking organizations. And we are constantly being approached by people that say, how do I get into the safety business? Or it'll be somebody that's in the safety business, but they're not at a level in their career. And they say, how can I move up? What do I need to do? And so what we thought about today is just visiting with you and kind of giving some anecdotal information about the paths we took, how we got to where we are. I think you'll find that it was not always linear. That there were twists and turns, but when we stand where we are today and turn back in retrospect and look back over our careers, we can see, now I understand the reason that happened, or I understand that that ended up helping me get to where I am now, or a particular door closed that I now see in retrospect, it was good that it did close. So we're just going to have very personal, frank conversations today about our careers and how we ended up where we are and doing what we do, and some of the pitfalls, some of the things that we may can share some information that will help you keep from making some mistakes maybe that we made along the way. So it's just going to be an open conversation about that. And guys, I want to start with just a story, and y'all know I love to tell stories. So I'm going to start with a story, and then I'm just going to punt to y'all. I was raised in the rural South. I'm from Texas. I'm a native Texan, and I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. Okay, so and y'all know I'm the old guy on the podcast, and I'm never embarrassed or vain about that. But most little boys in the South, at least during the time I was growing up, there were certain games that you played, and one of them. And it may not be politically correct to say this now, but at the time there was nothing. But we played cowboys and Indians, where you would just go out and you'd throw rocks at each other. You'd make homemade bows and arrows, and you'd throw sticks at each other. And it was just a way little boys dissipated energy. And you would build forts, and you would hide, and you would have secret codes and all that sort of stuff. Except at my house, and I'm the oldest of four boys. I've got three little brothers. And my brothers hated this, but me being the oldest, I got to pick. And we played highway patrol and speeder. And I tell you that because from an early age, and I'm a blessed man, and I'm going to confess to y'all, I'm blessed. From an early age, I knew that I wanted to be a Texas Highway Patrol trooper. And so I would make my little brothers get on their bicycles, and I would get on a bicycle. And I would hide behind a tree, and I'd make them drive by, and I'd pull out and stop them, and I would take a Dairy Queen napkin and write them a ticket on a Dairy Queen napkin. And then I'm telling y'all the truth. And they had to go into Mama, and Mama was the judge, and she would fine them or whatever. And
you got your mama in it too.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. I tell you that to tell you that the foundation for my career was laid. Or was put down at a very, very early age. Now, it was not that linear path. I graduated from high school, and you had to be 21 to go into the Texas Highway Patrol, and you had to have at least 60 hours of college back then. And so I wanted to go to a junior college and get my 2 years, my 60 hours, and then go into the highway patrol. My dad, and I've talked about my dad on the podcast. My dad's deceased now, but my dad was a truck driver my whole life. All he ever did for a job was drive a truck. And he was scared to death for me to go into the highway patrol, and he encouraged me to do something different. And I ended up getting a degree in education, both a bachelor's and a master's degree. And I actually taught school. I was a school teacher for 2 years, and then I was a county extension agent with the Texas Agricultural Extension Service for 2 years. And finally, my dad gave me his blessing when I was 27 years old. And I went to the Texas Highway Patrol and did a full career with the Texas Department of Public Safety and loved every single thing I did in DPS. And so I tell you that even though I knew from the time I was a little boy what I wanted to do, I so loved and respected my dad. And his fear was, because he was a professional truck driver, he had seen state troopers all over our nation, and he was an over-the-road driver. He went to all 48 of the contiguous states, and he had seen troopers out here working horrible wrecks in terrible weather. He had seen them standing at roadblocks when hurricanes and tornadoes had come through. He had seen them fighting people on the side of the highway. He had been in truck stops at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. There'd be a trooper in there drinking coffee or eating because he'd been out working all night. And my daddy just wanted something more from me than that. Although I had this burning desire, and guys, I don't know how else to describe it, a passionate, burning desire in my heart to be a highway patrolman. And it's important I say that, not just a police officer. And I have no slight against local police officers, against federal officers, against deputy sheriffs, but I specifically wanted to be a highway patrol trooper out here enforcing traffic laws. I don't know where that love came from, but I had it from the time I was a little boy. And I'm going to yield to you two guys, and then we can have more conversation about kind of how my career has gone since DPS, because I did a full career with DPS and then got into truck safety after that. But I guess if there's a teachable moment from that story I'm sharing with y'all is find your passion, whatever your passion is. And it may not be that you can make a living with your passion. Your passion may end up being your hobby. But my passion from the time I was a little boy was to do that job. And the 4 years that I didn't pursue it, when I was teaching school and working for the Texas Agricultural Extension Service, I was very unhappy in my vocational pursuit because it wasn't what I was passionate about. So think about, as we talk about how people transition, as we talk about how people promote, as we talk about how people maybe come from non-traditional backgrounds into the safety world, I would ask folks to ask themselves introspectively, what are you passionate about? What are the things that get you excited? What are the things that you have a burning desire to do?
I think that's the key, Kenny, is when you talk about what are you passionate about, you have to ask yourself that question and figure out what that is and why it is. Because when I am not a story, I love the way you tell stories, Kenny, and just talking about your life. I mean, people want to sit and listen to that, and I don't have that gift. But going back for me, when I look back on how I got to where I'm at today, sometimes there's some days when I scratch my head and I honestly don't know. It's like, how did I end up here, But when I go back, I wasn't that kid that knew what he wanted to do when he was, single digits or maybe a teenager. I was in college. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And as I went through, I was studying criminal justice for my undergrad, and I was coming through college. And when I graduated, I honestly got to give credit to my beautiful bride. She of course I was looking too, wasn't exactly sure where I was going to land. And she found a job with our state DOT and doing commercial motor vehicle enforcement. And so I decided, okay, well, I'm going to give this a try. This is something that, this is one of those steps that I'll take, kind of a leap of faith, and we'll see how it goes. And I think even through that process, looking back now, hindsight's kind of 20/20, but through that process, I'm not sure, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years in, 10 years in, I'm not sure I could have answered the question of what am I passionate about, or what is my why, like I can now. But as I've grown over the last 20 plus years working in safety and working with trucking companies and building those relationships, it's very clear to me now where it wasn't for me just I want to work in trucking safety. It was, I started building relationships in this industry at an early point in my career. And we have clients today that I was in doing investigations and compliance reviews on, 20 years ago. And there are clients today, and we have great relationships. So I started building relationships at an early point in my career. And it's no different than what I would do in my personal life. But, and as I started doing that, my level of concern and care for these people began to grow. And I began to understand, if I can help them, yes, we want to help clients be successful. We want to help them be safe, that kind of thing. But if I can truly help them, that's what made a difference for me. It's like, if I went in and I discussed with them, or they had a problem and I could help them with that, I started seeing, okay, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And as that continued to grow, then I began to get a bigger picture of, it's not just the folks that own these companies. Then you start to meet drivers. You start to meet, Kenny, you talked about that networking thing. We all do that, but we network in such a way where your sphere or your circle of influence just continues to grow. And that's what happened to me. I've been in this industry long enough now where that circle of influence, and it's still happening. I'm meeting new people. And to me, that's the why. You meet somebody new, you make a connection, and then, hey, I've got something that I can offer you. Yes, I can help you with your safety. I can help you with managing your risk when it comes to your trucks or drivers or anything like that. But what I really have to offer you here is just a friendship, a relationship, a personal touch where you can pick up the phone and call me, whether you're, a client of ours or not. I mean, I know all kinds of people in the trucking industry that are not our agency's clients, but we build that network of folks. And it's not, for me, I'm telling you guys, and I'm sure you both could say the same thing. It's not fake for me. It's, if I've made a connection with you in my professional career, that's something that means something to me. So to me, I guess, Kenny, I think it's, as I begin to just build relationships throughout my career, that began to give me my why and what I'm passionate about. That's what I like. It's what I get up in the morning. It's what gets me up in the morning and gets me out the door to do what we do. It's because, I've built these relationships with people, and I want to help them if I can. There's aspects of our jobs that where we lend help to those on the carrier side, and that's what I enjoy doing. Because, and you guys that listen to us on this podcast, you probably get tired of hearing me say this, but it's, my end goal and my why is, all the things we do in safety is protect life, whether it's a truck driver, the folks that are out there on the road, sharing the roads with our trucks. That's the goal. And I think if I can get out there in my circle of influence, the people that I've built relationships with, and help them be as safe as they possibly can, I know that I'm helping protect life out there. And that is something that means a lot to me.
Great advice, great wisdom.
Well, I had a pretty twisted, rocky road how I came into the safety world. And I guess I'd call it kind of from the school of hard knocks. I mentioned previous podcasts that, I came home from Iraq and was really looking for a job. And I went through a staffing agency, and they had a alfalfa pellet production facility. And all that they wanted out of me was leadership. They were getting robbed internally. There was no profit, and it was just a facility that was going under. And so to say that I knew what I was doing when I got there, that would be a lie. I had no clue. That's not what my college degree was in. That's not what my background was in, but they asked for leadership. And I'm not going to say that I was great at that either, regardless of what I had learned in the service or rank there. but I knew what right looked like, and right is right and wrong is wrong. And we started to peel some layers back there. And 2 weeks after I started, I had two OSHA inspectors knock on my door. That was my first exposure into the regulatory world. And they said, "We're with OSHA." And I said, "Well, who's OSHA?" And the company knew about OSHA, but they didn't put very much emphasis on it. It was all about there were several different facilities. Through that process, I became a very, very rusty and uneducated subject matter expert for the whole company. So next thing I knew after that, I'm standing up a safety program for 7 other facilities. And flash forward a couple years later, then I'm working for a grain company that safety is the number one priority. And I know that we don't always do shout outs, but I'm going to name her because besides the Lord and the support from my wife, this woman had the most influence on me developing a passion for safety and how to manage it. And I was a grain facility manager, and her name is Sue Mead, and she is all things safety, health, and environmental for one of the largest grain companies in the United States. And she put me on a path that just kept advancing me through some leadership and management positions because she could tell my passion was growing, my knowledge base was growing. And honestly, if you had asked me 10 years ago, where would I be? This is the last spot that I would have imagined. Kenny, you mentioned playing cops and speeders or troopers and speeders. I grew up playing recondo. I was making mud holes and camouflaging and low crawling and doing all that. I might still be in the service, but my path was not straight towards becoming a safety professional. It was not structured. It was not built around an education. It was purely in trial and, unfortunately, some error. And Mike, I love how you said that, how much you value life. My errors in the leadership that I was hired for, I've never cost a life, but I've cost a lot of machinery. I've cost some loss to structures and equipment. I've cost, through lack of leadership and knowledge, I've cost appendages. And that, I don't know how to say it any other way, but that really sucks. I loathe the fact that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't know enough. And so why am I here now? It's almost how I feel about vets. It's almost how I feel about those first line responders that just have made sacrifice after sacrifice. The reason I'm here is I owe a debt to those people that have gone before me. I owe a debt to the fingers that are missing. And if you asked me, what are you afraid of? It would be no man ever. But it would be letting somebody down again, not being ready, not being prepared, not knowing enough, or maybe having too much pride to say that I don't know what the right answer is. And so I went from a 20 years of service to what I consider the rest of my life of service, and I'm paying off a debt. And if I can stop it from happening again, if I can say, ooh, I don't know what the answer to that is, but let's not do anything until I call some people, because I don't know everything. Let's call some people and let's figure out what's right now. So weird trip, but that's how I got here, gents.
I'll tell you what, both of you guys, and I'm never embarrassed to tell y'all know I've told y'all this many times, and I'm not embarrassed for our listeners. No, these two men are my colleagues. They're my work associates, but they're brothers to me, and I love them. And I love the way y'all inspire me, the way you motivate me, and I am profoundly grateful for what you two, the impact you two men have on my life. So for our listeners, and I think just think about what you've heard here, and we're not through talking because I'm going to pose a couple of questions to these guys, but um, I shared with you a lifelong passion to want to be, particularly in law enforcement, highway traffic safety law enforcement. And I'm going to share in a few minutes how that morphed into truck safety. Mike talked about the impact and the influence his spouse had on him. And then as he got more into this business, the relationships, the networking that was built. And I want to make a parenthetical insertion here talking about Mike and his network. I had a privilege, and I count it a privilege and a blessing. He invited me earlier this year to come up and to speak to the safety directors for the Missouri Trucking Association. And I want to tell you what, other than Mike Bohan, I didn't know anybody in the state of Missouri, nobody. So I walk into a room with, I don't know how many people in there, well over 100, maybe 200, I don't know. But from the moment I walked in, I felt like family. And the reason being is, even though I was from Texas and I didn't actually know any person other than Mike in that room, the fact is we all belong to this brotherhood, this fraternity, if you will, of safety professionals. And so we speak a common language. We have a common passion. We have a common motivation. We have a common commitment, if you will, and that transcends not knowing somebody. That transcends location and time and space. So even though I walked into a room full of strangers, within a matter of minutes, they were treating me as a brother. They were treating me as family because we're cut out of the same cloth. And that cloth is this world we call the safety business. And then you hear Jim sharing not only his the impetus to get into this came through a staffing agent. He needed a job. I mean, he had a family and kids on the way, and he needed work. He needed income. He needed revenue. And then once he got into that, and the key thing I picked up from his story is the person he gave the shout out to, he found a mentor. That's all about mentorship. And so think about just the three, just if you want thesis statements from each of our three introductions, passion, networking, mentoring, those are the kind of things that you need to start thinking about. If you're thinking about wanting to get into the safety world, is it a passion of yours? Have you developed that network? If you don't have the skill set yet, can you come under the tutelage of a mentor? Those are some great ideas for you to first start thinking about. And so, guys, I appreciate both of y'all sharing not only the very pragmatic things in your life, but also the philosophical bend of that whole thing. Now, I mentioned in the intro, a lot of times people will come up and say, how do I find out about jobs, or how do I'm at this level. I'm a safety manager. I'm a safety coordinator, and I want to be a safety director. Or I'm on the operation side. I'm a truck driver, and I want to get into the safety world. I feel like I have a knack for that. And so, guys, I'm going to share something, and then I want y'all to think while I'm sharing about how do we mentor and counsel and give advice to people that are actually practically looking for jobs. And the little bit of the story I want to add to mine is, after a quarter of century of law enforcement, I had done that and loved every minute of it, and left on very, very good terms. Still have excellent relationships with the Texas Department of Public Safety. And any young person I ever encounter that's thinking about law enforcement, I always ask them, have you considered being a state trooper? I'm still fiercely loyal to the Texas Department of Public Safety. But life after law enforcement goes on. And so when I retired from being a state trooper, I found, and I live in the northeast part of Texas, and there was a trucking company that was looking for a safety director. And I heard about it through networking, Mike. I had a former DPS officer that said, hey, this company's looking for somebody. And I went and talked to them, interviewed with them, and they hired me. And again, it aligned with my passions, with my values. This was a hazmat tanker outfit, and I'm an old hazmat guy. I love hazmat. I eat, live, and breathe it. And we ran 500 trucks. We had 21 terminals across the U.S., ran into Canada and into Mexico. So truly an international company, but all tanker, all hazmat. And I was in hog heaven, to use an old country boy term, and meaning I loved what I was doing. And I was there 5 years and still loving it at the time. And part of that networking you were talking about, Mike, and going back to my college degree, which was in education, I had started doing a lot of teaching, primarily for the Texas Trucking Association. I was teaching hazmat. I was teaching leadership development. I was teaching the federal regs. I was teaching defensive driving. And I had made a presentation at a conference. And this guy I didn't know from Adam came up to me and said, "Hey, I work for an insurance company and we're thinking about hiring a safety guy. Would you be interested?" And I said, "I don't know anything about insurance and I'm very happy doing what I'm doing." And he just, over time, he wasn't real pushy, but he just kept approaching me periodically and said, "Just think about this." And he started sharing with me a little bit about what it would be, the job and all. And to make a long story short, that's the opportunity I had to come on to mine and both of y'all's current positions. I was approached by somebody, and I know that's a similar story to both of y'all, and I'm going to segue into that, because of our networking and because of teaching and training and getting to be known in the industry, we were approached, and I was approached. And after a time, I said yes. And I left reluctantly from my previous job because I was so happy doing what I was doing. And I was actually scared that I wasn't going to like this job. And in fact, I have, and I love it. And we get to go out now every day and deal with trucking companies and help them be better, help them be within regulatory compliance, help them pursue best practices, and help them get those drivers home safely, keep mechanics from getting hurt in the shop. And that's what we get to do. And so my point about that is the passion was still there because I'm passionate about safety. I'm passionate about the trucking industry. The networking led me to have this opportunity. And then even at my age and the number of years I've been doing this, I still seek out mentors. And so, I think of what you guys shared. And how it's put me where I am today. And I think the advice or the counsel that I would share, again, looking back in retrospect now, is for somebody that's interested in this business to think about what are your passions, what are your interests. Don't ignore those. Get involved as much as you can networking in trade associations, local safety councils. If you're a truck driver, let your safety director know, "Hey, I think someday I'd like to be a safety guy." And then take Jim's advice. When he had that mentor, find somebody, number one, that's competent, knows what they're doing, that's willing to share with you and help you. And I find very few people in our industry that aren't willing to do that. And when you find your passion, and you have your network properly developed and you find somebody that'll mentor you, you get those three ingredients together and in sync, it's going to be hard to keep you down.
Yeah. And I as you were talking, Kenny, I had this thought just continually rolling through my head is you got to hang out with people that are better than you are. Whatever your passion is, whatever your desire, whatever you want to do, find somebody that is 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of you, or like you said, you find somebody that's knowledgeable, that's got their stuff together. Hang out with those folks. It's such a key thing. And I'm going to extend a challenge to the folks that are listening to us, regardless of what position you're at in your career, how far you've gone, whatever, is be willing to be a champion for somebody. Be willing to be that mentor to somebody, because I'm telling you guys, over the last several months, I've had a lot of companies reach out to me and say, "Man, we're looking for a safety person. We've got a need here." And there is a need for good quality folks that will help trucking companies out there with their safety programs and really helping them with this. So I think all the three of us sitting here and everybody that's listening to us that is in one of those positions, safety director position, VP of safety, whatever, I think we've got a responsibility to look for those folks that are out there and say, I'm going to help that person along. They've expressed a desire to me. They've expressed that they would want to do this in their career or their next step. So look for those folks. And if somebody reaches out to you, and be willing to be that mentor, to champion for them. And I just, Kenny, over the course of my career, I can think back to several folks that if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have taken the next step in my career. And I'm so grateful for them. And I'm so grateful that I'm where I'm at. As you said, I think I can speak for all three of us. We love our job. We love what we do. We're grateful to have this career that we've got. But I can point to people along the way that opened a door for me or taught me something, or I learned something by watching them. And guys, I'll throw both of you into this as well. You have to put yourself in a position with other people that are going to make you better. You know, that old saying, iron sharpens iron. That's a true statement. You get together with true brothers and true sisters, and they've got the same goal in mind, and somebody's going to help you. It better be sharpening you. It better be making you better. And that's what you need to be looking for if you're looking to take your next step. And if you're out there and you've climbed up your career ladder a long ways, I'm just going to challenge you. Look for those folks to bring along with you. I think that's an important part of our responsibility in this safety world is helping the next generation come up through the ranks and start working that part of their career. Because, you know, like I said, the end result, the end goal is going to be the same, no matter where you're at, what you're doing. We're out here to protect life and make sure everybody gets home safe at night. If we truly believe that as safety professionals, we need to be bringing up the next generation.
Amen.
Yeah, that's interesting. My mom and dad's voices ringing in my ears here of, you know, you will become who you surround yourself with.
That's right.
And my dad's saying, well, you're allowed to hang out with whoever until that person starts influencing you instead of you influencing them. So talking about a little bit of leadership there. Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. That was, Mike, you hit it right there. Having a mentor, having that person, bringing up the next generation, that continual challenge. Kenny, you have had me do some speaking engagements, and I don't think that it was because you didn't think that I could do it. I think that you've had me do these speaking engagements and had me take an extra course. One is you already using your position as a mentor, as a boss, as a friend to expand my circle of influence and expose me to people and help me start building those relationships. And so all those people that I've been in those courses with, we're on email chains. We're on that LinkedIn. And Mike, it rolls right back into what you're talking about. It is a relationship-driven thing. It's identifying who's got a passion and a desire. And then as that mentor, promoting them, getting them uncomfortable until they build their group, expand their business acumen, if you will. And so I think that was all really good stuff. And Kenny, what you just said there about speaking at some event and then having somebody stand up and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a guy like you," getting suckered in that way. You sent Mike out to me. You sent Mike out to me the same way.
I was hoping you would tell that story, so please flesh it out for our audience.
Yeah, well, I was in Wichita, and I was given a safety state association. It was the Kansas Grain and Feed with multiple other sectors of that involved. And it's just a safety OSHA regulatory update.
And Jim, let me, I want you to tell this, but let me interject this part of this.
All right.
I'm a trucking guy. So there was a void there. Some of our ag producers said, "Hey, is anybody willing to go out to this conference? I think some of them couldn't make it, whatever. And it was all safety people, but it was OSHA and ag and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I've got some clients in the area. If I can make it, I'd be glad to stop in there. So when I stop in, I'm sitting through the sessions. Of course, Mr. Jim Seibert is the one presenting the most. And lo and behold, we were looking for an ag risk consultant.
There
And it
you
didn't
go.
take me long to get on the phone with Kenny Ray and Miss Ellen and say, we have found our man.
Actually, Jim, during your presentation, when he couldn't make a voice call, he sent me a text and said, I found the guy.
But so Jim, as from your point of view, I didn't want to interrupt your story, but I just wanted to tell people that it's like my intent out there was I was just kind of filling a void. But man, you made such an impression on me that I knew right away this is a guy that I could see working with. He fits.
Looking back, the whole thing feels like a setup or a trap. The gentleman I was working with, he'd worked for OSHA for 13 plus years. And the reason I always did most of the speaking was he didn't come from the ag industry. He had very, very little knowledge of ag. And so when we're out speaking to ag, it was always me. And we always began our sessions with, is there any insurance companies in the room?
I was the only guy.
If you remember that, you were the only guy.
And so I knew right away I needed to hide behind something because they'd be throwing something at me.
Well, there's a reason that we would typically ask that. And a lot of it is, how do you feel about it? And it's something I've learned now working for an agency is there's something called insurable, and then there's something called regulatory compliance. And those aren't always a directed jive together, right? But I'll say this, you can find brand new insurable facilities that are just bright and shiny that have no regulatory policy. Those things are easy to insure because they look good to the eye. But you can have a really, really old facility or old truck that is 100% regulatory compliant. Those things should equally be as insurable as the bright new shiny object, because if they take care of that piece of their business, they're taking care of everything else as well. They're doing the small stuff well, which to us is the huge stuff. So I'm at the meeting. I'm eating a barbecue sandwich after I get done. Mike comes over and I'm like, well, the insurance guy's got some questions for me. And he's like, hey, do you know anybody? We're kind of looking for an ag risk consultant, and I'm asking him about the position, and he tells me more. He's like, but Jim, I don't really know everything about it. I'll just have my supervisor give you a call, and we'll go from there. That was the setup right there. He put Kenny Ray on the line, and I will say it before, or I've said it before, I'll say it again. I will go to war for Mr. Kenny Ray. I didn't feel like I was going to work for Marsh and McLennan Agency. I'm working for Kenny, and he'll never say I work for him. I work with him. And I've loved every single minute of it. And I'm so thankful that Mike was texting behind my back. I'm thankful that he approached me, and I was looking for somebody that you guys were looking for. But the more that I got to visit with both of you, the more I knew this is exactly where I wanted to be. And I'm beyond thankful for all the reasons of why I'm doing this now. I am back with my boots on the ground where the workers are, and I can talk to them about safety, and I can make an impact there instead of I'm always talking to the director. I'm always talking to the CEO. I'm always talking to people so high up that my message doesn't make it down through the echelons. I'm talking to the person that is working to feed a bunch of 10-year-old and younger kids at the house, and they're just doing everything they can. And I'm telling them, well, they want you to get home safe. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, gents.
I love it. What a great story. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for joining us on this episode of Driving the Line. I want to wrap it up by saying this. If you're interested in the safety business, or you're interested in promoting in the safety business, Think about the three thesis. I'm just going to distill it down to words, three thesis words, if you will. If you got nothing else out of our podcast today, think about your passion, think about your networking, and think about mentoring or being mentored, mentorship, that whole idea of coming under the tutoring or the tutelage of a wiser and more knowledgeable, experienced person. And if you combine those three things, passion, networking, and tutoring or learning, it'll be a grand slam for you. And you heard all three of us throughout this podcast use family terms. We talked about our brothers, our sisters. We talked about safety, family. Jim even referenced his parents. And one reason we do that, this safety world it's a family. We work for companies that at the operational level, they're competitors. But when you get to the safety folks that work for these companies, the men and the women that are the safety people, all of that competitive stuff goes out the window. We have one agenda, and that is keep people from getting hurt. That's our agenda.
Yeah.
And so I tell you, none of us were born into this family of safety. We were all adopted at some point. And I want to leave you with a word of encouragement. We're always looking for other brothers and sisters to adopt into the family. So you join us next time on Driving the Line. And if we can ever help you with anything, you reach out to us. Y'all have a great day and be safe.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Driving the Line, the Pursuit of Safety. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and thank you for listening. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Driving the Line, the Pursuit of Safety on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other app you're using. You can also follow Marsh McLennan Agency on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, thanks again for listening. Drive safely, everyone.